but the common data about you as a human should be present. Who are you? Where are you? What do you do? What do you love? Those 4 things should appear on all of your profiles. Put on a title. If you can, put in your company, put who you are, put where you are, and say something about what you love.
Hi, I'm Gustavo, and I bring you today's topics related to human resources, career management, and business. Welcome to HR Talent and Insiders with me, Gustavo Serbia. So listen, we have today with us Mike Batman Cohen, founder of Wayne Technologies. For those of you that are listening to us, and for those that are watching us, obviously you can see him. Hold on, let me decline here a phone call that I'm getting. Somehow he still connects to the computer. So Wayne Technologies is a staffing and recruiting firm, and you are the founder. I always like to start giving an opportunity to the guest to, in this case, for you to introduce yourself. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we will then take it over and discuss what you do.
Awesome, man. Thank you. So I am Mike Batman. I respond to either. I have to. My wife refuses to call me Batman, so it's all right. I'm working on it. So I've been agency side for a little over 13 years. I started as one of those not great recruiters. That's being very kind just now. I was one of the, throw stuff against the wall, see what sticks for like a decade. And I, decided to start my own company. I really enjoy the ability to free think and be agile and kind of change things as need be. So I started my own firm and took a little while to get off the ground, kind of find my groove. But, about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I started partnering up with a bunch of recruiting tech companies, from HireTool to Seek Out to Loxo, Engage Talent, Seamless, you name it. I've spoken to them, or I currently have a partnership with them, more or less. And during that time, I started putting myself out there more. So in 2018, I spoke at one conference, and I started putting myself out there, realizing I loved it. Like, I loved the ability to be in front of people and help and impart knowledge. And so starting in 2019, I made it a commitment. I'm going to start writing and I'm going to start presenting. And lo and behold, I guess I'm at least decently entertaining. I wound up speaking at 19 conferences last year. I did over a dozen webinars, right around a dozen podcasts, and just loved it. I love kind of giving back. My company's mission is to be the rising tide that lifts all boats. So I love it. Yes, free marketing for me, yay. But it's much more. I like being in front of a crowd. Right, I'm an indoor cycling instructor.
Okay,
I will tell you, I don't like indoor cycling. It's not a thing. Like, if I weren't teaching, I don't take the class. It's not a form of exercise I like.
Okay,
I like being the center of attention. So. It works. When you work from home, you need that, right? Like, I remember my wife and I, when we were still dating, living in New York City, she pointed that out. She's like, you like being the center of attention, right? I was like, no, I don't. No, I don't. It took me probably like 2 days to come back, and I was like, I do like being the center of attention. She goes, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. He's just like, you like that. She's like, think about like a side hustle you could do,
Yep.
I'm like, I could be a bartender. She's like, no, you can't. And I was like, okay. Indoor cycling instructor. Yeah. She's like, no, you can't. It's like, alrighty. So yeah, it was roughly around this time last year, I started getting more business, and realized that a lot of the other companies out there who do like contract sourcing, contract recruiting, tend to have, I'm going to say all. My experience has been that at least a large enough number of them to make me uncomfortable have practices that I'm not like, my morals and ethics don't really align with, right? Like putting the same person on multiple projects and charging for 40 hours a week on all of them. And it's just things that generally make me a little bit uncomfortable.
Yep.
And so I started doing some work with Jer and James over at Paired Sourcing. And I saw the way they were doing things and loved it, right? They brought me in with open arms and kind of like taught me their ways. And I looked at it and said, this is super cool. I love it. They're a great company, great humans, the two of them. But I wanted to take it to in a different way, right? A different path. And so I created what I think is the only model of this that is, it's contract sourcing, but it's deliverables based. So it's based on, I'm no longer tracking my hours. You don't get to claim my time. What you do get is to give me a new role every, like, I don't know, Monday typically, right? And by Friday at the end of the day, we give you a preset number of candidates, typically 200, all with personal contact information. We guarantee 90% personal emails, current company, title, years in company, location, school, degree, major, grad year, LinkedIn URL, socials if we can get them. Then we rank them all. We have 3 different rankings, like a reach, which is a really good candidate. You may have a little bit of a hard time getting them. Definitely message, and then a maybe message, like we think we should.
Okay.
We give notes for all of the reach rankings and all of the maybe message, telling you why we think so. We guarantee we use at least 3 platforms, and we share all of our Boolean that we use to find the candidates. Once the client gives a thumbs up Monday morning, we then start an email outreach, typically on their domain, send out 5 emails in about 8 to 10 business days, and share all the introductions. Second somebody says they're interested, share it right over to the client, and we have a live dashboard that shows every piece of data you could want about the search and what platforms and how many profiles we've looked at, delivered, messaged, et cetera. So, and we guarantee a 25% response rate.
So this is interesting, and I'm curious, why does all that search that you conduct, why does it matter to the client when at the end of the day, what the client is looking for is the candidate? Why is it that the data of what you search, the Boolean and all of that, it's important?
Yeah, so it's a great question. If a client says, I need a person in this seat, I am very direct and I go, I'm not your guy. Go work with a contingent agency, go pay them $25,000. Peace out. That's not my jam. I'm done with that agency world of like, give me somebody, find me somebody, I need to get somebody. I get it. They're all urgent to fill. But at the end of the day, if you're, and I apologize in advance, if you're dealing with shit data, you're going to get shit results.
Yeah.
And
garbage in, garbage out.
Gigo. Thank you. Yeah. And so if that's not a thing a company cares about, we're not in alignment in our recruiting methodologies, right? If you want to see 5 candidates from an agency, interview them, hire one of them, that's great. Good for you. Go pay for a contingent firm, right? It's gonna be expensive as hell. And the only data you're getting are 5 candidates worth of data, and you have to pay for every one of them you hire. Conversely, if you're like, holy smokes, you're gonna give me 200 candidates with all updated data, personal email addresses, you're gonna rank them, show me how you got them, reach out to all of them, and then make intros on any of the interested candidates. All the data's mine, and we can hire as many people as we want off that list forever. And I go, yes. If their response is, whoa, we're the right fit.
So do you get, I've worked with a lot of recruiters, recruiting firms.
I'm sorry.
Do you get pushback and say, what's the catch? That you're offering so much and not.
No, it's funny you say that, man. Gustavo, it speaks to you in terms of your kind of awareness in this space. I've found in general, I found the commonality of people who either view what I do and go, whoa, that's awesome. Really? And the people who are like, yeah, nah, I don't really need that. I just need the person. And what we found is recruiting leaders, right? Managers, directors, VPs, who still recruit at least a little tiny bit look at what I do and what we do as a company and go, that's awesome. Once they're removed for too long from the process and you're talking about like the data aggregation and ranking and all this, the general like vibe is like, yeah. But like, where's the candidate? And so the only responses I've gotten as to like, what's the catch is when dealing with like the guarantees that we offer, right? 200 candidates, 3 platforms, 90% personal emails, 25% response rate, is, well, what if you only find like 150 candidates? And I go, ready for this? You pay me 75% of that week's fee because I only did 75% of what I promised you. Oh. They're like, you can do that? I'm like, yeah, of course. I could charge you for 30 hours of work if I was an hourly employee. Why can't I charge you for 150 names or whatever, you know?
That's right. Well, this is clearly a different model that you are introducing. And as you mentioned, you haven't necessarily seen it. Part of the reason I started this podcast, obviously I've been in HR for 20 years and I decided that I just wanted to talk to people that I can learn from, right? And cool. Then I just decided I'm going to record it and share it. But I do have a passion for helping people navigate what I call the workplace environment, call it career management, call it coaching, but it's getting people from point A to point B. And a lot of people don't understand these behind the scenes, right? Most people that are applying for jobs, they're still, they take their resume, they submit it via applications left and right. And, certainly as an employer, I love what you're doing from the perspective of you just got to give me candidates, right? And I want qualified candidates so that I don't waste time on people that are just not qualified. They may or may not be interested. That's different, but at least they're qualified. But from the perspective of a job seeker, I wanted to break it down for a few minutes. And because the reason I met you is because I participated in one of your presentations about Boolean search, which the knowledge that I have about Boolean search is probably as much as you may have about Puerto Rican history.
Wow. It's funny. I studied Puerto Rican history in college.
Oh, look.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I totally lied just now. I know nothing about it. Yeah.
Let me tell you, that would have been pretty awkward.
If I didn't even know one fact to throw out to give it to me, even make it sound good.
I'm so glad that I used it. Woof! I saved that one. Okay. So, obviously, when we talk about recruiting, there's the sourcing side, which I'm going to say it's newer, right? There always has been people that look for people, but this whole branch of sourcing, people that are dedicated at finding people left and right, and that's what they do. They don't necessarily get in touch with the individuals. Tell me a little bit about what sourcing is all about, particularly for those that are job seekers.
Oh, man. I'm gonna either get a lot of people angry or a lot of people happy with this. Because I've been asking this on my own podcast. I ask people, I'm like, hey, where's the line between sourcing and recruiting? Right. Yeah. And there's a bunch of different areas and people have different opinions and beliefs, a lot of which are wrong. No, I'm just kidding. So what wound up happening, I think, several years ago, sourcing's been around a little while. It just hasn't been identified as such, I guess, until maybe like 10 years ago. And then it's become much more, call it mainstream in the last like 5 years, 6 years. So what I believe that sourcing is top of the sieve, recruiting is bottom of the sieve. So just for anybody listening, using a funnel analogy doesn't work in this case, right? And if you're like, why not? So a sales funnel, in an ideal world, when you put stuff into the funnel, everything comes out the bottom, right? Best case scenario for a salesperson, they reach out to 100 people, they make 100 deals. If as a recruiter, every single person you reached out to wanted to talk to you about a job, you would go crazy.
Yeah.
Right? If you reach out to 100 people, 100 got back, all wanted to talk to you about the job, all were interested. So that's not really what we want. We want more of a sieve, like a sifter, right? So things, as they go down and down the process, less and less and less until you have pure gold at the bottom. So a sourcer is what we'll call top of sieve. So talent mapping the market is one. Two is actually locating candidates online. And most people think when they hear that, they're like, oh, you go to LinkedIn. Like, yeah, like that's a source, right? But not, that's not by any means the source, right? Like if you're in retail, you're a teacher, you're a truck driver, like LinkedIn's not a great resource for that, right?
Yeah.
For that, you'd be better off on like Facebook or Instagram, honestly, right? So do people source on Facebook and Instagram? Yeah. And Twitter and GitHub and Reddit. I have a buddy who made a placement from Airbnb, not like the company, like the rental site itself, looking at reviews and finding somebody who left a review saying, my husband's a software engineer and we blah, blah, blah. And backtracked it, boom, reached out, said, hey, not to be crazy, saw you rented this on Airbnb, wanted to reach out, but the guy was so blown away. Lo and behold, he placed him, right? So
wow.
Yeah, that's Brian Fink, huge shout out. He's also one of my best friends. So like he's phenomenal. Another person you'd love to talk to. So sourcing, in my opinion, goes from talent mapping, right, seeing what's out there, all the way down the sieve until you message the candidate. My personal belief and logic to me dictates, I have a really hard time understanding the other side of the coin here, is when the candidate responds and says, I'm interested in this, I would love to talk, then it should, in my opinion, go to a recruiter.
Got it.
That way, one person maintains the relationship, one person finds the candidate. Why did this come about? I believe it came about as a result of kind of realizing that there were two sides of the coin in terms of personality, right? So a recruiter, as most people think of them, is that like schmoozy, I love to chat and make connections, like we're all friends and I want to meet people. Sourcers are data nerds. Right? So like sourcers love spreadsheets and research and just like volumes of data. And so how do you identify this? If you said to someone, hey, I've got 7 candidate calls set up today. They're all lined up for you. They look awesome. A recruiter will go, yes, that is, thank you. A sourcer will go, oh my God, I think I'm sick or something, right? Like I can't make it. Yeah. Conversely, you have this gorgeous, huge spreadsheet with all these crazy formulas and calculations and data. If you show it to a recruiter, they're like, yeah, people, super cool, right? Whereas the sourcer's like, oh yeah, spreadsheets, right? They're just different humans. And in order to retain people, right, in an industry that has a notoriously high turnover rate, one of the ways to do that is by analyzing that, hey, you like talking to candidates, you like building relationships and interacting with hiring managers and that, cool, that's a job. Well, hey, you like acquiring data and research. That's a different job. And that's kind of where that divide comes from.
Got it. So you're specifically in the sourcing side, or do you consider yourself that you're doing both?
It depends. I know it's a rough answer. I've been a full desk agency side recruiter for the first like 11 years of my career. So I did everything from biz dev of picking up job orders and clients to sourcing to recruiting, right? Recently, I've been primarily sourcing focused because I love it, but we do retained search. So for retained search, we do soup to nuts, you name it, and provide the same type of approach, actually, even with retained search, while it's the more expensive model to it, right, for these executive and difficult to find, we still provide every ounce of data, right? Every profile we've looked at, every person we've reached out to, it's all the companies still. So
Got it. Yeah. So from a candidate standpoint, obviously, I won't even know that there's somebody like you that may be finding me on Twitter or Instagram, in all of these places. But certainly I know, and hopefully most people know, that in one way or another, we're leaving breadcrumbs across social media about who we are. A sourcer is figuring out a way to find the pieces of breadcrumbs that are important based on the search that you're conducting. But most job seekers don't know that, right? If we take LinkedIn, everybody's focused on LinkedIn, right? While you may be looking, based on the presentation that I saw you did, you're actually Googling. And yes, some of the results that come up are LinkedIn related, but like you said, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Is there anything that I should, as a job seeker, do on those social media sites that I am participating in to leave enough breadcrumbs that perhaps you might be able to find me? For example, I don't have my work history on Facebook. I don't put anything related to it. I just don't like it. I don't do it on Instagram, but somehow on LinkedIn, I'm willing to put everything, which it's kind of weird, right? But it's that separation of professional and social. But I think as I articulated, it's kind of stupid because
you're not alone. That's actually really common for people in my generation, older millennials and up, is like this feeling of like needing to separate, right? Well, like LinkedIn's for work, but Facebook, that's personal, right? And it's like, yeah, sure, 10 years ago, fine, right? But it's not. It is.
Yeah.
We're living in a world of younger millennials and Gen Z now where there's no such thing as like this for this, this for this. They're all different platforms that serve different purposes, right? Like you're not going to get the job detail that you have on LinkedIn on Facebook or Insta, right? And you're not going to get all the cute puppy pics from Facebook and Insta on LinkedIn. But the common data about you as a human should be present, right? Who are you? Where are you? What do you do? What do you love? Those four things should appear on all of your profiles. Put on a title. If you can, put in your company. Put who you are, put where you are, and say something about what you love.
Oh, good. Look at that. Very specific. Awesome. Now, so without getting too technical, now there's this Boolean search ability, which, if I were to explain it, is the ability to put certain keywords and characters on a Google search box or a Bing search box that will produce results. So no different than me putting, Puerto Rico, and it'll give me certain results. You guys use certain language that give you specifically what you're looking for. Can you tell us a little bit of what Boolean search is? How would you describe it? And how does it help you?
Yeah, so Boolean search is a mathematical language actually created by a guy named George Boole, right? Boolean. And the way I think about Boolean is a human's ability to communicate with the way that a computer reads.
Okay.
Right? A computer doesn't read English the way that we do. They're getting better at it. I'll be honest with you. But it doesn't interpret everything that we want, and it doesn't understand what's most important, what's not, those either or type of statements where, I want this or I want this, right? I want nachos or I want sushi, right? So what Boolean is a form of basically mathematical logic that has operators and commands that enable you to more clearly, and we'll say succinctly is not the right word, more focused maybe, search through the internet, or most sites and platforms offer a Boolean engine of sorts to come up with the results of exactly what you want.
Got it. Yeah. So obviously recruiters use this, sourcers in particular use this ability. And is this something that, for example, if I have Taleo or ADP or iSums, is there an ability for a recruiter or a sourcer to do the Boolean search within the platform, or is it only Google based?
No, most platforms support Boolean.
Got it.
There will be different commands that are available based on the platform, which is very frustrating, I understand. So like in Bing, for example, the around function doesn't work. It's just not present. On LinkedIn, the wildcard doesn't work. It's not present. Why? Can't tell you. Besides the fact that LinkedIn is just the worst. But besides that, I don't know. So yeah, it's a little bit of exploring on that side, but like the and or not, for the most part, the parentheses and the quotation marks tend to work on most sites.
So I would like to link then these searches with the famous keywords. I had a podcast with Amy Miller, whom you know, and you had on your podcast too. And we dispelled a few myths. And, you know, the whole keyword, it's not that we dispelled keywords, but we were a little bit more specific on how keywords work. And certainly, I still encourage people in plain English to match as much as possible their resume to what the job description shows in terms of requirements, experiences, responsibilities, so that those keywords do appear on your resume. But how do keywords then link on a Boolean search that you might be conducting, if they link?
Yeah, I'm not a keyword fan. I'm not a buzzword Boolean fan. It's a little bit harder. I think the short answer to what you're asking is state what you do clearly, and be mindful of how you're stating what you do versus how someone who doesn't do what you do would look for it. Right? So if you're super technical, for example, that's awesome. And you should put some super cool technical stuff in your background if it's not, if it's not fluff. However, I'm not super technical. I mean, for a recruiter, I'm pretty technical, but like I don't code. So like if you start getting into like all of these different, like, I forked this repository from GitHub and connected blah, 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 blah. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. And so what am I going to look for? If I'm a great recruiter, I'm going to use natural language and look for places where you've used, like an action verb with either a piece of technology or a process, right? And so are you saying that, right? Are you saying engineered, developed, created, built, right? Are those the verbs you're actually using? Are you saying what you built it with, right? So a way that I like to encourage people to think, and it doesn't have to be this formatted, but think about the STAR methodology. It's a great way to answer behavioral-based interview questions. It's also a great way to think about your writing, which is start with a situation. What was the situation you were given? What was the task that you were given within that situation, right? Like came to this company and sales were declining by 10% year over year. Okay, cool. Your task as a director of sales was to increase so that you were, instead of going down by 10%, you were increasing by 15% every year. A is the action. What action did you actually take to do that? And not, we increase sales. Yeah, duh. Yeah. You're a sales director, right? Yeah. What actions did you take tactically? And then the R is, what's the result? What was the result of the actions you took? Well, as a result of the actions, sales actually increased 17% a year. Okay, great. Don't write all of that out, but use that as a guideline. Are people able to read what you're writing and go, oh, I get what they do?
Okay. So when you say that you're not a fan of keywords, if I may ask, what do you mean?
I'm not a fan of buzzword Boolean. So example, you're looking for a Java developer in New York City who's worked on, Spring or Hibernate, has some good backend, relational database, SQL, Oracle, MySQL, 5 to 10 plus years, whatever. A buzzword Boolean search would go software engineer and Java and Spring or Hibernate and SQL or Oracle or MySQL, 5+ years of experience, search. So all you're doing is searching for people who have those buzzwords somewhere on their profile. We haven't actually researched like, oh, hey, for example, you probably aren't looking for a J2EE engineer. They're different, right? Or that, hey, JavaScript and Java, not the same thing. Or, hey, if you're a core Java engineer who's got any type of computer science background, you've probably worked with Spring or Hibernate, right? Like the chances are much greater that you have than that you haven't. So you don't have to use those, right? Also, everyone has the word Java on their profile. Everyone, right? I think the word Java is on my profile. So what value is that? And then also People do this all the time. Like, well, I'm looking for a software engineer. So I put software engineer in the title. I'm like, cool. Is that what they call them?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're looking for. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
But what do they call them, right? Java developer, Java engineer, software development engineer, software engineer, Java engineer, software development, whatever, blah, blah, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of options. So
Yeah.
are you just throwing out like, here's a buzzword, go? Or are you thinking through, hey, what's the logic behind the buzzwords? What is the use case for these buzzwords? And how am I going to then manipulate my search to make sure that I'm casting a very focused but wide net, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to cover the Red Sea, but I do want to cover this one portion of the Red Sea straight to the bottom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, particularly if you're promising 200 candidates, I get it.
We're mining through 800, 900, 1,000 profiles to come up with the 200. So
as I think again from the candidate standpoint, it would appear that Boolean search, some people may say, well, but that's for people, with technical backgrounds in computers, engineers. If you're in the tech industry, the Boolean search will work better. I'm just an HR guy. I'm just an accountant. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because they're going to have to read my resume to really know my experience. Do you think that that's the way the sourcer mind works, regardless if it's technology or not?
No. So first off, Boolean transcends any industry. Second, resumes are becoming dead slowly but surely. So stop focusing on your resume. It's just not a thing. 3, stop applying to jobs. It's a crappy way to go. Very few people, I think, what was the stat? 2% of people who apply to jobs get them, right? That's where they come from. Reach out to them directly, find the hiring manager, find the head of recruiting or someone in a similar facet and just reach out to them with a custom message for that one human at that one company and just be a human. And if you're human, people will respond to that because everyone else comes across with this robotic, dear madam or sir, I found your profile on LinkedIn and believe that we would be an excellent match. And I'm like, ugh. Right, who does that?
I've done a few of those myself.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I can't handle it, right? I don't even like saying hello or hi, first name in an email, because if I were to say that to a friend of mine and I were like, hi, Gustavo, you'd be like, oh, what did I like? Hi, Mike,
What happened?
I'm like, hey, Gustavo, how are you, man? So like, it's much, the time is very rapidly increasing where we're going to be blurring the lines between the personal and professional world and communicating just as a human who communicates with another human, right? Like I cuss. It is the nature of the beast. I don't cuss in email. I'm not suggesting that. Don't cuss in email, guys.
Correct.
Do not cuss in email. I don't drop F-bombs on stage.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Most of the time, right? But like that's how I communicate, and anything else would be disingenuous. I'm not saying that if I don't curse, it's not genuine. What I'm saying is I allow myself to communicate the way that I communicate because the bottom line is it's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And you as a company should want to hire someone for who they are. Yes. And what they can do, but who they actually are. And you as a job seeker should want to work at a company who looks at you as a human and goes, you're our type of people.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you brought that because, all right, so just to close the question, the Boolean search applies regardless of industry, regardless of role. So for those candidates out there that believe that, putting keywords or really using the STAR method of writing their resumes and profiles, it is relevant. Take advantage of it because somebody like Mike can be behind the scenes searching for you.
But I want to go the other way with it, Gustavo. You as a job searcher should learn Boolean. It will help you find jobs.
Yeah.
Right? Like people always say like, really? Why would I need to know that? And I'm like, hey, Gustavo, what is your spouse's favorite thing for dinner?
My wife, Mexican.
Okay. What's your favorite thing for dinner?
Pizza.
Okay, cool. So if I wanted to take you out to dinner, I would go, as just a human, I would go restaurant and parentheses, Mexican and pizza and a zip code range of where you live and click search and see, are there any places that have both nachos and pizza? Right? Like, I don't know. Let's find out, right? Now that's what I want to look for. And so there's no human who couldn't benefit from knowing it, right? Like I'm looking for an accounting job. Great. Accountant or CPA or FP&A or FPN with the ampersand or FPNA with an N, right? And I don't know, what do you like to do? P&L, forecasting, stuff that you enjoy doing.
Correct.
And, some industry. And now all of a sudden you're finding jobs that aren't just like director of finance, like, cool.
Yeah.
How many jobs are you filtering through?
Yeah. Yeah. I have to admit, that's the reason why I joined your presentation, because I wasn't expecting to become an expert at it, but I was expecting to understand it, to potentially use it in my job search, because the reality is that many people are out there, and you go to LinkedIn, you go to Glassdoor, you go to Indeed, but where else are those jobs posted that may not be coming up on those websites? So I do appreciate the plug of learning it as a job seeker. But I want to close with this, because the other side that I think job seekers struggle is how to approach recruiters. And I was watching a presentation, or I think you were at another podcast, and you were talking about your sister.
Yeah, famous sister story.
Yeah, and I would like you to share that story, because I think it captures what people say about not only being yourself, but how to differentiate yourself from everybody else. So take it away.
Yeah, this is so funny, by the way. I've told her story probably like a dozen and a half times, maybe 24 times between webinars and conferences. And she was at a July 4th party in New Jersey, where she's from, and overheard somebody talking about how they're a recruiter or in the recruiting space. And she's like, hey, do you know anybody who goes by Batman? And apparently this guy knew me. He was on one of my webinars. He goes, oh, you're Lauren. You're Lauren. It's like,
but I tell you, it's a great story. That's why I wanted to close with it, because
yeah.
I think it captures what we should be doing as job seekers.
Yeah. So I'm going to preface this by saying Lauren is currently open to new jobs. So if you're hiring for somebody like this, give me a ringle. I'm not going to charge you for her. She's my sister and one of my best friends. So my sister, my younger sister, is one of my best friends. She's brilliant, way smarter than I am, way more professional than I am. So don't worry about that either. And she graduated with a degree in finance and accounting, got her MBA, and worked at New York Life as a financial analyst for almost 10 years, right? Think of New York Life, right? They're a gigantic insurance company, and she was doing financial analysis within insurance. So 10 years comes around, and she's like, hey, Mike, I was hoping, she also doesn't call me Batman. Hey, Mike, I was hoping you might be willing to help me. I think I want to find a new job. And I'm like, this is the only time in your life professionally that I can help you. I'm like, sign me up, I'm like, hey, here's what we want to do. You find a job you're interested in. I will find who the job reports to and find one of their recruitment leaders. I'll get their email addresses, both personal and professional. Hot tip, message them on both. And then you're going to write a custom email to them saying why you're interested in the job and the company. She's like, great. So one of the first ones she comes up with, it's probably the second or third role, is a role with Bed Bath & Beyond as a manager of strategic finance within supply chain management. And I'm like, hey, super cool. They're a retail company. This is strategic finance. It's in supply chain management. You've been at an insurance company doing financial analysis. Really? She's like, I think it would be awesome. I'd really like it. And I want to give it a shot. I'm like, cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah, cool. Let's do it. Right. So find the manager's name, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, write up that email. So I get the email, and it goes exactly how you think it would go for someone who's been at the same company for 10 years, right? Dear hiring manager, I found your open role on LinkedIn and believe that my experience at New York Life would be a perfect fit for your job. I think that based on my role where I was blah, 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 I would line up perfect. I was like, oh. I was like, Lauren, you know that if you took out Bed Bath & Beyond from this, you could literally put in like any company into that space and use this same letter? And she's like, yeah. I was like, no. She's like, I was like, well, why do you want to work there? It's like, well, I think that my skill set for my time at New York Life would match up really well. I'm like, whoa, bullshit. Stop.
Yeah.
I'm your brother.
Yeah.
Why do you want to work at Bed Bath & Beyond? She's like, oh, I shop there all the time. I have 3 kids. So obviously, their return policy, their deals, all that is great. Kids love that store for whatever reason. And I like what they're doing to try and stay competitive with Amazon. And I'm like, cool. So write that. She was like, I'm not telling some hiring manager at a company that doesn't even know me, that I've got 3 kids and shop at his store. And I'm like, do you not have 3 kids anymore? I was like, well, the youngest is my godson. I was like, please tell me that there are still 3, And so she's like, I don't know that I'm comfortable with that. And I said, hey, listen, literally in anything else in the world, I'd say, sure, fine. This one area, just trust me, okay?
That's right.
So she did, and she wrote the email and said, I have 3 kids. I love shopping at Bed Bath & Beyond. My kids love it. It's great for our household, and, I love what you're doing, competing with Amazon. And went into like why she was really interested and why she thought for that particular role, not that her skills lined up well, but like, hey, when I was at New York Life, I did these 2 things that I think are very similar to kind of the what you'd be looking for here, and here's why, and here's what I loved about it. Yeah, and I'd love to keep doing that. Lo and behold, right? If you look her up online, her name is Lauren with a Y, Tinari, Tinari. She has been at Bed Bath & Beyond for over 2 years as their manager of strategic finance and then their supply chain management group, right? And the hiring manager, God bless him, he's not there anymore. I wish I could get him to record him saying it. He never would have looked at her resume. Ever. It didn't line up for the job at all. But the email he got was so personal that he's like, all right, let me check out what's going on, right? So he spoke to her, and lo and behold, she's still there today. Right now, she's still there and looking. Right?
Yeah. I tell you, I personally, as a job seeker, I have struggled with that concept because, part of the problem with most job seekers is that we go with, a plain vanilla approach. We apply the same approach across the board, the same resume, the same cover letter, the same type of email. And it's what I describe as the lazy way of searching, which is, here's who I am. You figure out who I am, and that the world has changed. So when I heard that story, it reminded me of the importance of not only personalizing that resume, but I agree with you. Most of the jobs out there are filled through referrals. Just because you apply to 20 jobs does not mean that you're going to get any, and it doesn't mean that you're entitled to any. And networking.
By the way, about this, if you email the hiring manager with your info and you're interested in the job, that doesn't count as an application.
Got it.
That doesn't count in that 2%. Why? Because the hiring manager is then referring you into the job.
Yeah.
Right? So that's part of the referral.
Yeah. That's why referrals and personalizing the process from application to a cover letter, if you're going to use it. I'm not a fan of cover letters, but I get it. To personalizing the emails that are sent to the hiring managers and to the recruiters. I think that there's more value. You increase your chances of standing out. You may not get the job, but the key is to increase your chances of standing out in comparison to any other candidate. So I connected with the story, and I'm going to use that approach moving forward. Mike, to conclude, I always like to close giving the floor to the guest to pitch, sell, give a quote, whatever they want to help us close the show. Your floor is yours. In appreciation for your time, what do you want us to know?
Yeah, I hate selling myself. I told you guys what I did already. If you want to learn more, just reach out. I think what I want to leave people with is the fact that we're at a struggling time in our industry. The bar has never been lower to get into what we do. The amount of crap in our space has never been higher, and the ability to do it at scale has never been higher, right? The only thing worse than a pound of crap is 2 pounds of crap. So I really encourage be human, right? Be a part of this community. Reach out to me. Shoot me an email. Shoot me a LinkedIn message. Shoot me a Facebook message. Quickest way to get me.
Yeah.
Right? Ask questions. Why do you do this? How did you do this? Set up times to chat. I try chatting with at least 5 people a week, honestly. People I don't know, just to connect. Why? Just to connect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And I'm so surprised constantly at what I learn, right? Like this guy, Mike Vroman, who's a buddy of mine, who like I probably connected with, I don't know, like 2 months ago or something. I connected the day before that Boolean piece. And like, he and I were just BSing. There's no anything. We're just like, blah, blah. He's like, what are you working on? I'm like, this webinar thing for tomorrow. And it's like, oh, what about? Went over it with him and he goes, dude, you know you can do that on LinkedIn, right? And I was like, no, you can't. And he's like, yeah, dude, seriously, I just tried this. Watch, check it out. Lo and behold, right? This guy who attends my webinars and podcasts and stuff is teaching me stuff. And I'm like, dude, yes. So like, reach out to people. No one who is anybody reputable in this space will say no, they don't want to connect with you or help you. It's not the way we operate. Just reach out.
Yeah.
Just reach out.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying, be human. Being on the unemployed side is tough. It's embarrassing for many. Many don't know how to go about it. And, there's a lot of poor recruiters, bad companies. Are they the majority? No, I don't believe so. But I do appreciate the message, because particularly people that are looking for jobs needed, because they're afraid. They're afraid that they're going to remain employed. They're afraid that they're going to be rejected. They're afraid that they're not going to be able to provide for those that are part of their circle. So, like I reached out to you and I said, hey, I have this little podcast. Would you mind coming? And here you are. So I'm very appreciative of you coming. Sorry about the marble shirt, but I had to do it.
It's all right. That's all right. Listen, I love all of the above. I just psychologically relate to Batman.
Yeah. Well, listen, Mike, I appreciate very much your time. Thank you for your knowledge and for being here with me for this last hour.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's been this has been really fun. I've enjoyed this a lot, and even for you, man, just reach out. Let me know what I can do to help.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.